Resuming recording, and hi everybody. Welcome to you. And we're, continuing with our sort of study group work, which consists of the uh, Cosmic Fire on Fridays and identifies being on Thursdays, whether, it's morning or evening. And it will be Science of Triangles on Wednesdays. And as you know, Tuya has devised some new offerings involving the animal kingdom and climate change. I mean, all of these things are interrelated, aren't they? And group work. We have this, I think, excellent compilation on the new group of world servers. And, sometimes it comes up, why shouldn't we just call them the world servers? Well, I think the idea of the new group points to the fact that for so many millions of years it just didn't exist. And now it has existed for almost a century, but that's still new. So let's just see who's here. And, when there's time, I'd like to welcome you. Of course, Michael and Joe are helping here with whatever happens to me along the way. And welcome to Anne and Annette and Astra, Catherine, Cindy, Diana, and Georgie, looks like, Joe, Garceau, and Johi from Korea, and Karen, and Martine, and Risto, Tia, Vivienne, and Yvonne, Zenaidi, and Anna, looks like, and Veronica in Greek. I took one summer of ancient Greek. It all was very familiar, but there were more things to do in this life than to repeat an old one. So I can still read a little bit of the Greek script. Okay. Yeah, we're rolling. Now, where were we? Uh, Approximately page 5960. We did a little bit of that, and just to refresh ourselves, I have a comparison coming up. We're talking about channels of approach from different centers that are being compared, and the centers that are being compared are the solar logos, the planetary logos, and the human being. We could also compare the atom, and I think when we look at Babbitt's atom, we see those three channels of approach as well. So, just reviewing here that when from the solar logos and from all of the centers, whatever they encounter along the way, and this is referring to the solar logos, uh, such as planetary bodies, will be affected by all three channels. One affected by the Akashic current, number two, the electrical current, and number three, the pranic current in some way. And they seem to be ascending in terms of their refinement. At least that's what I've been able to deduce so far, that the pranic current is the most subtle, and the Akashic current the most tangible. So they are affected, these bodies, by the triple channel of approach. But all of these currents, says the Tibetan, are only the internal fires of the system when viewed from some other point in universal, though not solar, space. So they are still, fairly low fires that we're beginning with. The whole beginning of this book is all about the third aspect of divinity. And, hopefully we can keep moving into, well, it's a difficult book, it's difficult, and basically it is written for those with the initiate consciousness. Now, that means we can derive something from it, but not necessarily what DK intended. It is therefore obvious that this matter of fire is as complex as that of the rays. Now that's for sure. We have sort of 49 fires and subfires going on here, just the way we do 49 rays and subrays, and then we can get into something we call the first ray types, the spirits of darkness, and they will also have this 49 foldness. These numbers are important: 7, 49, 373, and all of them represent, let's say, on the cosmic physical plane, different levels of vibration. The internal fires of the solar system become external and radiatory when considered from the standpoint of a planet, while the internal fires of the planet will affect a human being as radiation in exactly the same way. So the greater the source of fire, uh, as it goes forth, it is experienced by a lesser source of fire as an external fire, not an internal fire. And like I say, even the pranic fires are considered to be internal. So the internal fires of a planet will affect a human being as radiation in exactly the same way as the pranic emanations of his etheric body affect another physical body as radiatory, or other forms of life. What radiates, what comes forth from us, will affect lesser lives or even other human lives as radiatory. The point to be grasped in all these aspects is that one and all have to do with matter or substance and not with mind or spirit. Those are reserved for different points in the book, different sections in the book. And as I said, I've done a lot of work in this book. Of course, it's never complete. But if you want to go to Makara, you'll find all of these written commentaries. Now, the only video commentary that exists for Cosmic Fire is occurring at the very end of the book, maybe the last 100 pages or so. Everything else is fairly meticulously written and partially derived from classes that I've managed to teach all over. Some of you have been members of those classes some years ago. So now we turn to the channels or rays of approach for the planet. deep in the heart of the planet, such a planet as the Earth, for instance, are the internal fires that occupy the central sphere, or the caverns, which, filled with incandescent burning, make life upon the globe possible at all. So, this is not the sort of molten iron core that has been hypothesized. It's a lot more like what Master Hilarion, in some of his purported books, is dealing with. So I'm just going to, as usual, try to highlight that. I had a friend, he had a lot of 6-ray, and he underlined everything he wrote with a ruler. Everything. Yeah, it kind of makes it difficult to discriminate what's important and what's not. Everything's important. So there's the hollow earth theory, filled with this incandescent burning and supporting all heat, all movement on the surface of the planet. And I suppose beneath the surface of the planet, there are forms of life that human beings are not supposed to get in touch with, really. I mean, there is a certain kind of discrimination, segregation that goes on here, and not all forms of life are meant to be mixing and having interrelation with each other. But I suppose that this deep incandescent burning keeps them alive too. And whatever they are, there's not too much that's said about them. They have some kind of connection with the Deva life, but they are fairly crude. Um, you'll find, if you ever read that rather kind of adventurous book called The Lives of Alcyone, it's like the last 50 lives of Krishnamurti as esoterically researched by Annie Besant and C.W. Leadbeater. I don't know how the division of labor worked out there, but they came up with an interesting book that takes us way, way back, tens of thousands of years, into some of his lives. Now, the only criticism that Master DK had about that book was that it covered things mostly from the personality aspect, and, well, I guess was not able to share with us what was going on in terms of soul growth, which, if Master DK had been writing such a book, would have been the major emphasis. But I think you will find that it's uh, kind of interesting book, and it shows us. It seems to show us certain ways that people lived in different places, and what were the prevailing themes of incarnation at those times. It's sometimes a little dramatic, and at least we do see something of the development of that great soul, Krishnamurti, who was passing through the fourth initiation in his last incarnation. It takes a long time to evolve, and you get the sense of the length, the duration of the evolutionary process. And that's not even really taking us back into Atlantean times yet. So one day we'll all have a chance to review our lives and, hang on to the chair. I mean, we'll see when we have progressed and we'll see the mistakes we have made, and it will be interesting, and hopefully we have sufficient detachment to live through it. Anyway, Krishnamurti went down into those caverns and depths and somehow met with or had something to do with some of these forms of life that have their own way of being beneath the surface of the earth, and actually relatively far beneath the surface of the earth. DK mentions them a little bit in this book, Cosmic Fire. So anyway, the hollow earth theory. The internal fires of the moon are practically burnt out, and therefore she does not shine save through reflection from the sun, having no inner fire to blend and merge with light external. So this is the dying moon, and by the time the 7th round is reached, it will have disintegrated completely. Now, what type of round that is it a chain round related to our 4th chain, or is it a scheme round relating to the entire planetary scheme? It's difficult, he doesn't really say, but at least by the, as he says, 7th round, moon getting smaller and smaller until disintegrated. And then we find that its influence on humanity, and it is not a good influence. It's not a good influence on our particular planetary chain, because it is coming from the 3rd chain, which is basically falling apart. That will cease, and as the moon gets smaller and smaller, its can I call the word baleful influence will be reduced, and conditions on the planet will be improved, our planet. So these inner fires of the earth can be seen functioning as in the sun through 3 major channels, corresponding to the akasha, the electric current, and also planetary prana. So, and what I've done here is I have you will find if you go to Makara, you will find that I've decided to compare them, you see, so that the 3 types are put side by side, and as a result, it might be a little easier to understand. So this is in the commentary, and you can find it fairly easily. We're in sort of commentary number 4 in section 1. I don't know whether you will have time to do that, but if you're a serious student of the book, it might be helpful to you. One can never tell what will really be helpful. It's different for different people, obviously. So anyway, corresponding to the akasha is something called productive substance or the matter of the planet, vitalized by heat. So you would suppose that this is basically, the collection of atomic structures which are somehow animated and kept vibrating by this productive heat. This heat and matter together act as the mother of all that germinates, and as the protector of all that dwells therein and thereon. It's a sustaining force. Yeah, and connected with the mother aspect, which shows us that we are ascending from the more gross to the middling gross to the more refined with the pranic fluids. So anyway, this corresponds to the akasha, the active vitalized matter of the solar system that nourishes. See, those are the words, mother aspect, nourishing, protecting, germinating, as nourishes all, as does the mother. Okay, so I'm going to maybe, maybe I'll just leave it that way. And I'll just say that here we have something. And then comes the second of the channels, connecting the earth as a center with whatever other centers experience it. Electrical fluid, a fluid which is latent in the planet, though as yet but little realized, and that's why maybe it seems somewhat a foreign idea to us. Let's see what we've got here. I'll just use like any old color, but just to distinguish. So it's not easily recognized. Now we're having a conference coming up, and I hope it's on the fifth ray, and it will start at the end of April and go to May 2nd. And I'm hoping that some people who have thought deeply about these matters and who are very equipped with the fifth ray will be able to present some lectures that will help us understand more deeply. So far but little recognized. It is perhaps better expressed by the term animal magnetism. Now that is interesting because we seem to be able to relate to that term. It is the distinctive quality. See, all this seems a bit strange, doesn't it? Because it's not anything that is much recognized in science today. It is the distinctive quality of the atmosphere of a planet or its electrical ring pass not. It is the opposite pole to the solar electric fluid. So, and the contact of the two and their correct manipulation is the aim, this is very interesting, perhaps unrealized, of all scientific endeavor at this time. That is an interesting statement. Science doesn't know really, not giving credence to these kinds of forces, where it is heading, but this is what the Tibetan predicts. And let's see, I suppose it's the negative pole. And I suppose there's a flow towards it, the opposite pole of the solar electric fluid. And contact of the contact of the two and their correct manipulation, and in that correction probably lies much research, perhaps unrealized, and I think indeed unrealized. It's the aim of all scientific endeavor at this time. And by that, I suppose he means during these particular centuries and not any short period of time. And then the final emanation. See, we can probably make sense out of all this when we look at man, because we're familiar somewhat with the three channels of approach of man, and we can generalize and analogize to the greater sources. The emanation of the planet, which we might term planetary prana. Okay, I'm going to make that a more definite thing. It is that which is referred to when one speaks of the, now notice, because this is important, health-giving qualities of Mother Nature, and which is back of the cry of the modern physician when he wisely says, back to the earth, back to nature, you know? It is the fluidic emanation of this prana which acts upon the physical body, though in this case not via the etheric body. Now that's interesting. It is absorbed through the skin purely, and the pores are its line of least resistance. So this is, fifth-rate scientific fact, and he gives it to us to help us understand the planetary emanations, all three of them. The fluidic emanation acts upon the physical body through the pores. The prana from the sun acts through the etheric body, and perhaps we can keep those distinct from each other. Okay. So, it's almost easier, I think, sometimes to understand how the sun is operating than how the planet is operating. A whole idea of a type of prana, which will be during the Aquarian age more and more of the healing regimen for people as they flee what Master Maria calls the fratricidal crowding of the great cities. Okay, they will spread out across the globe and not be so utterly concentrated as they are now, because abnormal behavior and unintended behavior arises in such crowded conditions. So we expect that, excuse me, Aquarius is one of those healing signs, and it's also a sign of distribution. It's a sign of spreading out, or they call it decentralization. And there will be a decentralization of the way human beings live, and that will lead to more healthy conditions. So basically, for true health, we have to take in radiatory prana from the sun via the etheric body, and we have to take in planetary prana through the pores. And probably that's a thought that not so many of us have given much attention to. But there it is. Now, the third of the centers that have these channels of approach is man himself. He may get into the atom, I forget, but when dealing with Babbitt's atom, it is there. So the man, so to speak. And I'll just, as usual, try to mark it out. Um, I'm not, being too particular about the colors right now. So it's easier to be, when you're working in Word, you have an easier way to deal with colors. You can have white print against dark color or dark print against the lighter color, but here you're somewhat limited. I'm working in the book because I find that although we could get into detail using the original commentary, it would just take too long and we'd get lost in that detail. Anyway, at the base of the spine, we're all familiar with this, right? At least we are vaguely familiar with it. At the base of the spine lies hid the fires of the human system, the internal fires of the microcosm. The center is located there, and from it, the radiations go forth along three channels recognizable in the spine. So it's three channels of approach. Okay. Producing bodily warmth, that's first, corresponding, to the, as it will say, bodily warmth, the channel along which the heat radiates and which finds the goal of its attention to be the heating of the corporeal frame. So we all know what it's like to feel warmed or chilled. And I suppose that's a variation on what occurs uh, as a result of that first channel. Get this correct. The next is the nervous response. This is the vitalizing tenuous fluid which applies itself to the stimulation of the nervous system and which creates electrical response to contact between the nerves and the brain. Now, I think a lot of people who study the brain and the nervous system are somewhat familiar with these dynamics, though they may call this second channel by different names. It should now be more closely studied, indeed, and maybe in 100 years' time, since this book was written, approximately 100 years, it has been more closely studied. It corresponds to, and now we go back to the sun and the planet, it corresponds to systemic electricity and to planetary electricity. So the entire dynamic of attraction or repulsion or some kind of neutral state is determined by the three types of electricity. He tells us there is a form of electricity that we're not much accustomed to, and it is the central kind, neither the positive nor the negative pole, but something in between. So, have we detected this fluid? Because it vitalizes and is tenuous, which means it's very refined and maybe not easy to detect physically. But anyway, it applies itself to stimulating nerve ganglia, nerve centers, and possibly the glands. In esoteric healing, he lays out the connection between the blood system, the glands, the nervous system, and the chakras. So all of that can be studied in greater detail in that book. And then finally, from man, or in relation to man, comes pranic emanation. The emanation via the etheric body. Now note that the etheric body is again involved. And so this is interesting because when we're dealing with planetary prana, the etheric body is not involved. But when dealing with solar prana and the prana of the man, the etheric body is involved. That's why I've sometimes said there is a closer analogy between man and the sun than there is between man and the planet. So pranic emanation, the emanation via the etheric body, which corresponds in man to solar prana and to planetary prana, even though the etheric body is not there involved. This demonstrates principally in the health aura and has naught to do with magnetic qualities as generally interpreted when considering a personality or man as a unit. Magnetic qualities, no. Health qualities, yes. I make this repetition as it is very necessary that no mental confusion exists between that magnetism, which is a spiritual emanation, and that which is purely animal. Okay, there's still much more to study in this. But at least it shows us a fundamental analogy between three centers that we deal with increasingly. Obviously, we deal with our own setup as we attempt to improve our radiation and our etheric vitality, but we also deal with and receive from the planet something important along the three channels, and we receive something of importance because we're in line with the solar logoic emanations, the three of them. So more and more during the Aquarian age of, let's call it free energy, we will understand the subtle effects of these energies. Now, one of the things DK has said, you may remember, he said, when you're wearing clothing outdoors, assuming, I suppose, that the climate is reasonable or the weather patterns, you are to leave the area between the shoulder blades free of clothing. In other words, some sort of exposure of the skin directly in whatever you're wearing there is necessary in order to bring in the planetary prana particularly. And if the pores are receivers, excuse me, that would be solar prana, the solar prana, through the highest of the pranic triangle centers between the shoulder blades. And the planetary prana, if you wouldn't be receiving that as well if all the pores were covered up. So some really practical little things will come in to make our health better. And the last time we read this, he said that if we pay attention to the nervous system and the spine, very few will be the problems in the human body. And already some chiropractors, are practicing in that more advanced way. So here we basically have 9 channels. We have 3 sources: solar logos, planetary logos, and man. And we have analogies between the channels of radiation. And there are 3 analogies to be considered. Not that we understand them, fully by any means. Maybe, we just don't understand them fully. Maybe certain yogis who work with these channels wisely and effectively will understand a lot more than we do at this point. But then who is it that understands these other and higher emanations? And I think we'd have to go up the scale of lives to find those who really are on intimate intelligent terms with these other channels. But hints are here, interesting hints that help us have a more healthy life, a more vital and healthy life. Okay. It might be wise here to point out that this triple manifestation of fire demonstrates in the astral and mental bodies also, having to do with the substance of those bodies. Now, that's an interesting idea. So, for every being, there's not only a triple channel, but in a way, 3 triple channels, 9-fold channel. And, one day we'll be able to see and apply. We might express this fire in its triple manifestation as the sum total of the essential fire or life activity of the third logos. So we are in the realm, in these studies, concerning the Holy Spirit, the logos of activity, Brahma, and basically the lower Agni, considered inclusively. So bring the 9 together. And, it's interesting when dealing with the third aspect of divinity, one of the important cyclic numbers is the 9. Interestingly, 5 is the number for the second ray, but 9 for the third ray, and 1 for the first ray. So, the repeating, we might express this fire in its triple manifestation, 333, as the sum total of the essential fire or life activity of the third logos. It should be carefully borne in mind that the manifestation of the work of the three logoi is the expression of the mind of some cosmic entity. I think we can see why the number 27 is important. Note that in the 10th C group, there will be 27 members, and in the advanced school, the total number will be 27, 24 students, and that's the number of Shambhala plus 3 of the guides, 27 again. So anyway, these three logoi, third, Father, Son, Holy Ghost, are in a way representations of the entirety of our solar logos. It is represented in a threefold manner. And each one of them is threefold in terms of planetary logoi. Now, if you were to turn to, every once in a while, I just have to make sure I'm on the beam here. Okay. If you were to turn to page 99 of Esoteric Psychology 2, you'd see that the third logos is composed of three planetary lives, of which ours is one. Saturn, mental body; Mars, astral body; Earth, physical body. You would see that the second logos, the sun, is composed of three planetary lives. Now, what is the order? The lives, anyway, are Uranus, Jupiter, and Venus, or Uranus, Venus, and Jupiter. There are arguments to place them in either one of those two orders, but those are the three planets. And then whatever's left, basically Neptune, Pluto, and Vulcan, for the three lives on the first ray, with Mercury being the intermediary between all of them. So when it comes to the mental body, it's probably Pluto with his, helmet of invisibility, and the astral body of that cosmic being would be Neptune, and the physical body Vulcan. So we have a lot of threes and nines in the structure of these relationships. So basically what he's telling us, that in the astral and mental bodies, we have also the triple manifestation of fire. And it's finally a ninefold demonstration. It should be carefully borne in mind that the manifestation of the work of the three logoi is the expression of the mind of some cosmic entity. Now, in this case, I would say it's the, I think, the solar logos. Here is the diagram. All I have to do is find it and make sure I show it to you, right? Okay, so I'm going to bring this down a bit. And with Zoom, things are sometimes a little more complicated. Here we go. Now, I'll move this over and give a view. These are the cosmic logoi. that I think we're talking about, and each one of them is threefold. And here are different ray lives that are directly connected with them. And here is a cosmic being, the solar logos. Now, we could probably notice that down here on the planetary level, there's also a 3 around a 1, and then the normal spiritual hierarchy um, extends below and as part of these 3. I don't think we can handle yet the complexity that is suggested, but we can get at least an idea that within the one there are the 3, and within any one of the 3 there are 3 more. So let's see where we are here. Yeah. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to, okay. It should be carefully borne in mind that the manifestation of the work of the 3 logoi is the expression of the mind of some cosmic entity. In the same way, the 7 planetary entities, what will we call them? The 7 spirits before the throne? Okay. The 7 sacred heavenly men are 7 logoi, likewise cosmic beings. So really, you know, planetary logoi are cosmic beings. Solar logoi are also considered cosmic beings, even though they are intra-systemic in terms of our solar system. So the 7 logoi are likewise cosmic beings who in their totality form the body of the threefold logos. And we have looked at that. We have the solar logos, a cosmic being. We have Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, who are 3 kind of divisions representing the 3 aspects. They are subsidiaries to the solar logos, and each one of them has 3 subsidiaries, and taken as a whole, all of these logoi and planets are basically representing the totality of the solar logos. And there's a lot more out there, too, that we never take into consideration. The asteroids, the planetoids, and the, I guess we could call them trans-Neptunian or trans-Plutonian planets. They've already discovered some of these Pluto groups, you know. One of them, I think, is even bigger than Pluto. And on out, a long way. So the solar system is much more than we have thought it to be. So what do we have? He tells us. We have, therefore, the undifferentiated logos, a cosmic entity. Number 2, the logos, threefold in manifestation. Now, it's difficult, you know, he sometimes jumps around in such a way, and as does Blavatsky, that you can't tell whether he's talking about the whole universe or whether he's really confining his point of view to our local system. So number 2, the logos, threefold in manifestation. And when he says the word logos, he generally means solar logos. And then the divisions of that logos: A, the cosmic lord of will, power, Father; B, the cosmic lord of love, wisdom, Son; C, the cosmic Lord of active intelligence, which is Holy Spirit, or Shiva, Vishnu, and Brahma. And then we have this sort of triple logos, sevenfold in manifestation, meaning the major 7 planetary logoi. And then if he wanted to, he'd get into all of these other extra bodies, which maybe are secondary. Well, here's T. Subarro again. We have 3 footnotes right here. Oh, my goodness. And they're rather large. So maybe I can just read them, just so we don't skip over anything, because he felt it was important. His esoteric writings. As a general rule, whenever 7 entities are mentioned in the ancient occult science of India in any connection whatsoever, you must suppose that those 7 entities came into existence from 3 primary entities, and that these 3 entities are again evolved out of a single entity or monad. Now, let's make sure that I'm getting, that you can see that. Okay, so 137, and that is something we just saw in the chart of the uh, hierarchies. I'll put it on again so you can see that. 1, 3, 7. And in a way, here, 1, 3, and 7. Here are the 3 great lords, and here are subsidiaries, with the 3rd ray having to be counted twice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Now, let's continue. To take a familiar example, the 7 colored rays of the solar ray are evolved out of 3 primary colored rays. And the 3 primary colors coexist with the 4 secondary colors in the solar ray. He's talking about the prism, pretty much. Similarly, 3 primary entities which brought man into existence coexist in him with the 4 secondary entities which arose from different combinations of the 3 primary entities. Now, I've sometimes thought about this in terms of the rays. So we have 1, 2, 3, with ray 4 being a combination of 1, 2, ray 5 being a combination of 1, 3, and ray 6 being a combination of 2, 3, and ray 7 being an equal combination of 1, 2, and 3. Okay, well, we can't linger forever, but you get the idea that T. Subbarao tries to make these things clearer for us. And here's another pop-up. I'd like to be able to make this well, anyway, I'll just do it this way. He says, I have already said in speaking of this logos that it was quite possible that it was the logos that appeared in the shape of the first Dian Chohan, or planetary spirit, when the evolution of man was recommenced after the last period of inactivity on this planet. Okay, this is from Sinnett's book that he wrote in consultation with Master Kutumi, Esoteric Buddhism. And the Buddhism here means wisdom and not the religion. And after having set the evolutionary current in motion, retired to the spiritual plane, congenial to its own nature, and has been watching since, the silent watcher, right? Has been watching since over the interests of humanity, and now and then appearing in connection with the human individuality for the good of mankind. Now you kind of wonder, is he talking about Sanat Kumara? Or you may look upon the Logos represented by Krishna as the one belonging to the same class as the Logos, which so appeared. Okay, I'm not quite sure about the accuracy of all this. One has to really think it through. In speaking of himself, Krishna says, the 7 great rishis, the 4 preceding Manus, partaking of my nature, were born from my mind, from them sprang, was born the human race and the world. So he's elevating what Krishna is, not an earlier incarnation of the Christ, but more on a planetary level. And the Logos he seems to be talking about here is not the solar Logos, but a Logos that is involved on the planetary scale, namely our planetary Logos. And here is an interesting little chart. The following tabulation should be borne in mind. 7 branch races. Now, Philip Lindsay has done a great job in giving a chronology for all this, and a certain number of years connected with any one of them, at least his speculations, which are, usually well reasoned. So 7 branch races make one subrace. And, there are also reductions of these, like national and family branches, that kind of thing. But he's not subdividing to that degree. 7 branch races make one subrace. 7 subraces make one root race. 7 root races make one world period. Now that's usually a kind of passage of a round through a particular globe. At least here it looks like it is. And for instance, our Earth globe will have its 7 root races, unless like Venus it had only 5. So 7 root races make one world period. It's a vague term, but maybe he means the passage of a round through a globe. 7 world periods make one round. 7 rounds make one chain period. And then 7 chain periods make one planetary scheme. So maybe what he means by that is a scheme round, or if you put together enough chain periods, you will get a scheme round, and 7 of them fulfill the evolution of a planet, the planetary scheme. And 10 planetary schemes, notice not 7, because as in the Kabbalah, there are 3 above and 7 below. And we can come up certainly with the 10 planets as major. 10 planetary schemes make one solar system. So, little tabulations of this nature can be very useful and help us keep our sort of theosophical ducks in order, because a lot of this is pretty pure theosophy. By the undifferentiated logos, he seems to mean the solar logos. And he says it's undifferentiated because there are 3 differentiations which arise from it. Okay. Now, we're not going to do much more. This is pretty well it. I think I'll do one more short paragraph, and then the next time we get together should lead us up to a new section altogether. Each of these cosmic entities is, in his essential essence, fire. Each manifests as fire in a threefold manner. We've been saying that. In point of time, the cosmic lord of active intelligence, considered from the standpoint of cosmic evolution, is more evolved than his 2 brothers. He began first, you see. You have to lay the foundation first. And the 3rd ray is called the builder of the foundation. He is the life of matter. It's latent, internal fire. His is the fire essence that lies at the heart of the sun. Now, that's not the heart of the sun considered as the soul of the sun. This is a different kind of heart of the sun. His is the fire essence that lies at the heart of the sun, of the planet, and of man's material forms. He is the sum total of the past. Now, maybe that would be the place, since we've been going for about an hour here, to and I'm not sure, usually Michael Stacy tells me when we meet again, so
I'll check the calendar for you. Just give me.
Oh, okay,
It's
Joe, if you can do that,
the
that'd be,
next treatise on cosmic fire is
Yeah.
next week.
Oh, is it? Okay, great. All right, so then that would be the
At
29th.
6 a.m.
Yeah,
GMT.
okay. Oh, thank you. 29 January 21, 6 a.m. GMT. Great. Okay, and that's where we'll start the next time. Okay. Well, I'm well aware that we are dealing with theosophical fundamentals. And many students of Bailey don't want to get into that too much, because the Alice Bailey books have done such a magnificent job in telling us what the soul is. and how to develop soul consciousness through meditation and so forth, that these sort of third-ray issues, which Blavatsky brought forward and which the Tibetan is elaborating upon in A Treatise on Cosmic Fire beginning part, are of less fascination, perhaps, than how to really advance as a soul. So, nevertheless, we will find the atmosphere lightening as we go, and we will find ourselves focused on subtler and subtler planes, which tend to be maybe more interesting than to the average Bailey student, which we all are, than some of this really heavy structural material that we're being presented with. But at least we get an idea of the layout, you know. Are we dealing with our solar system? Yes, largely. Are we dealing with anything beyond our solar system? Well, the next local cosmic logos in which our solar system plays a part is not much elaborated, nor is the one about whom naught may be said, which we might call a super cosmic logos. There are references and indications which point to it in the various charts and maps which DK has given us. But, you know, he's not going to get into it too extensively, and we have to simply extrapolate. And that's pretty much the end of the, or at least defines the ring past knot of our possible articulated speculation. Now, we can go all the way to the top of the universe, so to speak. You know what I mean by that. I mean, we can take in the grand entirety, but we could only speak vaguely about the kinds of principles which emerge in the whole universal, um, within the universal boundary. And that is sometimes interesting and useful, and it sometimes seems like he does take a jump to go there. But at other times, he seems to be sticking right to our solar system. Yes, he gives details there. Our planet and man. And those are the three. I mean, the atom is there, but he says very little about it. The three that I just mentioned are the areas of his attention. Are there any things you would like to say or write? Any comments? I mean, I know this is difficult material, but hopefully you are absorbing something from it. A foundation. He wouldn't have written it if it wasn't of value. It may be of greater value to the true initiate consciousness, but it can be of value to us too. And prevents us from thinking superficially. And if you finish reading through Cosmic Fire and you're still thinking superficially, then read it again, you know, because it's a very, very deep book. Anything anyone would like to say before we close with the great invocation?
Nothing in chat and no hands
Okay.
raised.
And I'll tell you what, I don't blame anybody. I don't blame anybody. You have to get used to this language. Now, next time, we'll, as I say, as we go through the book, strangely, it gets easier to understand because it's focusing in an area where we more habitually focus, being Bailey students. This is pretty much the segue from the secret doctrine and what an elaboration upon what uh, Blavatsky gave to us, and going into much greater detail, than what she was able to do. But still, it's along the third ray line, just the way her teaching is very much along the historical third ray line, the past, the sum total of the past. And this is it here, right here.
Joe Garceau has a question.
Okay.
Am I
Yeah,
unmuted?
go ahead, Joe.
Michael, I'm trying to understand the personality level. And I get that the nervous system is the middle of the 3 points he makes, but I can't sort out whether it's going up or down. And so I can't tell which is father, mother, son.
No, I understand. And basically, it moves upward toward prana, but we're not even dealing with the personality yet. We are only dealing with the very lowest level of the personality of man, meaning the etheric physical system, the internal fires.
Right,
We can
right.
say
I'm
the
sorry. I
internal
used,
fires, yeah. The internal
I
fires
missed,
of the planetary logos are all three: mind, emotions, body. And we will be dealing with that. And let me see if I can, Joe, somewhere here, I don't want to go too far, but there it is. The personality ray and fire by friction. We're almost there. That's what we're about to study on page 69.
okay,
So
thank
we
you.
haven't really reached it yet. We're still dealing with the internal fires. And it seems like a long, slow time, that to move forward, but he's giving us this kind of material grounding in the whole thing.
I think
Yeah.
I misspoke myself. I really was talking about the etheric body. And there, yeah. And so
Pranic,
I,
the pranic
I made a
emanation.
leap forward and then I couldn't figure out which way to go, up or down.
Okay. It goes from akasha to electric to prana in terms of going up. And the only difference there with prana is the etheric body is involved for the solar logos and for the man, but not so much for the planetary sources. That's what's interesting. There, the planetary prana is not utilizing the etheric body, and that's kind of a interesting, shocking little piece of information. It's the pores that are important in the skin. So all of this is forcing us to think about new ways of becoming vitalized. After all, we do want maximum of vitalization so we can carry through in our service with the fullest energy possible. And I can only say that this will get easier as we go along, in one way, anyway.
It's
Okay.
basically structure understanding right now. Okay,
Yeah, that's what we're doing. We're
thank
looking
you.
at the structure right now. That's
Uh-huh.
good. The idea is that whatever, sometimes people even wear them now, they have some kind of, I'm not very good at clothing, okay? But it's something that you put around you this way, and it leaves the back open. So, you know, I don't know what they would be called. Tank top, maybe. Okay. I don't know. But the back between the shoulder blades, whatever you're wearing, has to be left open and exposed to the sun when you're in that kind of climate where, you know, it's warm enough for that to happen. And then there will be vitalization. And then the spine and the nervous system and that, you know, the spleen, the spine, the nervous system, the pranic triangle, these are all keys to better vitality than we've been able to manage right now. So, excuse me, I'm I can't really name what that item of clothing would be, but even if you just wear a shirt, the that part is cut out, so to speak.
Right, right.
Yikes. We'll get
Well, I'm aware of another device that, well, my daughter lives in a communal situation. And she emphasized for quite some time a little, what would you call it? An electric pad that was supposed, if you stood on it or slept with it, would bring you the vitalization from the earth itself. You know, so there are experiments.
there are a
going
lot of experiments going on. I think of an electric pad as having a lower form of electricity.
Yeah, well, this isn't an electric pad. It's something that's supposed to pick up the prana from the earth.
Oh, I see. I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then let's, you know, Aquarius ruled overall by Uranus, the planet of experimentation, will give us many new methods. So let's just get safely into the Aquarian age and begin to experiment with the possibilities. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Um, and Veronica is saying here, wait a second.
You got
Vivian is
that?
saying a
There's two
couple of things.
comments.
Halter top, maybe that's it. You know, I'm not going to be any the wiser, but maybe it's a halter
Yeah,
top.
females
I
are
don't
more
know.
lucky in the back exposure department
Okay, well, there it is.
for clothing.
Mm. Is DK transmitting a sum total of knowledge from past experience, his own or humanity's? Both, I would say. He speaks of the future as, you know, I would say, as written in uh, the sources in the shambolic libraries about inevitabilities, those things that will materialize according to the purpose and plan. He speaks of the future. Is this through inspiration from higher beings? Maybe, but also in the libraries, there are indicated what will come to pass. He says the plan is written out on 7 sheets of some kind of metal of which we know nothing. It's filled with symbols. It tells what was and what will be. And a master such as he is entitled to read from that method of presenting the divine plan. So obviously he has his sources of inspiration too, but these things are actually, he tells us, documented. But I'm afraid none of us have the library card quite yet. We have to prove ourselves a bit before we can get in. So yes, and in languages that we cannot fathom, such as the Senzar, and in symbols that we would have to work hard to decipher, and yet he can. So he can read of what has been in the past and see it, I suppose, to a certain extent in the Akashic record, and he can read about what is coming and translate that for us as well, as much as is lawful for him to translate. You know, he oftentimes says, well, I can't really say any more about this. I'm not permitted to, et cetera, et cetera. And Veronica, I was thinking about the moon. Wasn't it at least a great entity? Well, it was a chakra of the planetary logos. Why is it so different than the other moons? You know, some of those other moons may be planetoids after all. It's a dead body, you know, and maybe a lot of the others are not, unless it is, and for a planet to have S moon, I'm not sure what that says. Why is it so different? Look, all moons can be considered as chakras. Now, interestingly enough, the moon chain, which is dead, basically, has been replaced by something called the Saturn chain. Maybe I can show a diagram of that, because it would not be allowed for there to be a vacuum, you know. So all these chains are great entities. They are the bodies of expression of an entity we call a chain lord. There are globe lords, chain lords, and finally the lord of a planetary scheme, who is the logos, and then going on to the solar logos. So yes, once a great entity, and now I have the sense that that great entity, who is a psycho-spiritual being, has sort of been transferred to the fourth chain to work alongside the Lord of the fourth chain, which is ours. And so a makeup, a kind of continuation of the evolution that was intended to be completed on the moon chain is, under more difficult circumstances and with additional complexity, being completed on the earth chain. So I believe, you know, both moon chain and earth chain beings are here on the earth chain, and this is said to be true of humanity. We have the moon chainers and the earth chainers. They have a different orientation, they have different qualities, and they're working it out together. And the whole problem of capital and labor, as in the problems of humanity, have to do with the intelligent moon chainers, which are capital, and the more recently arrived earth chainers, which are labor, and the fairness element trying to enter into that. So we have double service going on in our fourth chain. Now, what may be all the particulars, I don't know, but even right here on our fourth globe in the fourth chain, we can see something of this working out. And let's just say that a lot of disciples today took their individualization on the moon chain. There are some that have worked very fast, and our earth chain humanity, like the Christ and others like him. Okay, is that it then? Okay. Looks like it. So let's, tomorrow, I think, what do we have? We have something at 6 p.m. tomorrow. Yes. And it'll be on the schedule that Tuya and Anne have created for us. I just want to thank Michael and Joe, who are on the communications group, for being here and helping us along. And BL's there, too. I don't see her here right now, but maybe she's often here. And
Yeah, the next is 6 a.m. tomorrow, which is,
yeah,
and then the 24th is attracting financial resources. And just to clarify or fix the mistake of saying that this was going to be next week, it's not. This treatise on cosmic fire next is at 6 p.m. GMT on February 5th, next month.
February 5th. Okay, so let me kind of do that. Okay. 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. 6 a.m. 6 a.m.
No, it's PM.
p.m. Okay. All right. Getting our ducks lined up here. Thank you, everybody. And now let's do the great invocation. Some of us have another meeting in just less than a half hour, so we have to be moving. And here it is. And there we go. Okay. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Lots of love, many blessings from all of us here, trying to bring you and ourselves greater understanding, deeper understanding. So we'll see some of you at least tomorrow evening, isn't it? I think so. And we share our thanks with you. Bye for right now.